Welcome to the Communicators Lab. I'm Shannon Berg, your host, and on this video cast, I talk with interesting people who know things, who can help you be better business communicators. And today is a big day because I've got John D. Stoll, business columnist for the Wall Street Journal with me. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
You worked in PR. Now what do you want? Any tips for PR people or things that drive you crazy? And then also, if you're looking for stories and interesting leaders to talk to, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll start with the advice. I mean, I think one of the things, just to dovetail off what we were talking about before we got into the fashion thing, was, during the bailouts, Ford didn't take the money. And it was really important that they didn't take the money, because that became, those 4 words, "we didn't take the money," became the mantra and an anthem that they could take to the public to both invest and buy. And so, that lasted a few years, but it was really capturing why we matter versus our competitors, is we actually made an ethical, moral decision to not take your money, taxpayer.
Yeah. Alan Mullally's whole thing was, we're making the cars and trucks that consumers want, and we didn't have to take the money, and we have all of these strengths. And he hit the road with it.
Right. And I think a lot of people were very upset about the banks, and they could take it out on GM by not buying another car from them. So, I think one of the things about my job, I'm a columnist, so it's a lot different than people who cover beats. I have a very different role at the Wall Street Journal than having to always be kind of I say this and knowing that, all my colleagues probably watch it someday, but I really mean it. Like, I don't have to be as much of kind of a sharpshooter as a beat reporter does. When I was covering General Motors, it was tough emotionally, because I liked the people that I covered, but I also had to write extremely tough stories and have an authentic vibe that I wasn't, I'd almost have to, err on the side of being skeptical, and I still do, but to the point where sometimes it got in the way of storytelling. The stories that I wanted to tell, I couldn't tell because the company was in such bad shape. Like Airbnb is a good example, where I'm sure there's some great stories to tell, but if you're covering them right now, it's kind of a crisis, and you got to kind of ask them how they got to where they got to, and you can't let up. But in my position, I can be far more empathetic is the word I use. Not sympathetic, but empathetic.
Yeah.
And I can put myself in the shoes of companies and try to explain why they've done what they've done. And, I interviewed Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't like, "Hey, you're the greatest thing, and I love your book," and all that stuff. It was, "You're a bad citizen." And I'm not going to hold that back, that I don't like Facebook, and I don't like what it's done to America, but you're still in your job, and you still have a ton of influence, and I'm going to listen to what you have to say, because in this moment, nobody's like stuck in time. People are fluid, and you've got to have some forgiveness, and you've got to have some willingness to listen to people. So I have that in my toolbox. The most important thing for me is to not, I think there's a lot of deadline driven PR, like, "Hey, we got this embargo coming up, you got to make a decision now." And I'm like, I don't do that kind of work anymore. So it's more about relationship building. It's opportunities for people at the level that I work at, is saying, in normal times, I can get on a plane any day of the week and come meet somebody and get to know people. And it's kind of those opportunities to kind of build relationships without the anxiety of having to do that immediate story, and or finding opportunities that companies say, "Hey, we really think this is," 3M is a good example. The 15% rule that I wrote about this week, is a tough thing to do in this time if you're not given the latitude that I'm given to kind of pick my spots and find a way to squeeze it into the coronavirus, coverage. But I find I think there's a lot of PR people that would talk to you that have met me that are surprised that I've taken them up on their offers. And the reason I do is because they're very good at offering access to very important people at the company. The company doesn't have to be huge, but the person that they give me needs to be of importance.
Yes.
And so, we want to take you in, the founder, and they want to show you around their factory, or, go boating with this guy that owns this small company out. And, those are the sorts of things. And it's not because I want to go sit on somebody's boat. Like, I've got 5 kids. I don't need to go, lux it up anymore. But
and if
I do want to
do it like 45 minutes or less from your house.
Yeah, right. I mean, so those days are over, but the days of really getting in the mind of a way a company works is very important to me. and having the trust on both ends. It's like, this guy's probably not, we're pretty sure he's probably not going to screw you based on everything that we've looked at. But I think the other thing, the big piece of advice that I'd give you in this moment is, I'll write about something and then I'll get pitched on it. And it's not the way it works.
Right.
If I've written on it, usually that means there's going to be a statute of limitations until I write about it again. So I need something fresh that's way off the pivot. So if I wrote about a McKinsey consultant on Monday, I don't want another McKinsey consultant. I want something creative and shows, okay, I've read what he wrote this week. I've got to bring him something that helps him move his narrative along. I wrote about Warby Parker. Every optometrist, every eyeglass company pitched me. I didn't, I'm like, I already wrote about the company I wanted to write about. What's the next industry? So
it's also kind of disrespectful, because you expect, if somebody's trying to build a relationship with a columnist like you, that they're reading your column.
Yeah, and I understand it. I understand that somebody's gonna be like, this is the optometrist guy. Let's go take him lenses.com. And I get it, but I think it's also saying most of the people that pitch in this way are usually agency, and they usually have a broad array of clients at their disposal, that they don't have to bring me the next column that I just wrote. They can bring me a brand new, fresh idea and access to somebody that's like, okay, we kind of get the vibe of what you're doing. Yeah. Really liked your column about Warby Parker. We got something that we want you to write about now.